The crystal walls of the Grand Council chamber stretched high above the gathered representatives. Light from three suns filtered through the transparent ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Stood alone in the center of the vast room, his hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by the alien delegates around him. A scar ran down the left side of his face, a reminder of battles fought far from this glittering throne world. Around him, the Aura nobles whispered among themselves. Their silver skin shimmered in the light, and their tall, elegant forms made look short and stocky by comparison. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years, and they knew it. Every movement they made spoke of power and confidence. Had traveled 3 months to reach this place. Earth had sent him as their representative, their voice in this new and dangerous universe. When humanity had stumbled across the Aura Empire 6 months ago, it had been an accident. A research ship looking for new resources had crossed an invisible border. The Aura had captured the ship easily. They could have destroyed it. Instead, they had sent it back with a message: send someone to talk or face destruction. So Earth had sent. He had been a soldier for 15 years before becoming a diplomat. He had fought in the resource wars on Earth, survived battles in the asteroid colonies, and led missions that others thought were impossible. But standing here, surrounded by beings who saw him as little more than an interesting insect, he felt the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. The human wishes to speak. A voice rang out across the chamber. Looked up at the throne. Queen sat perfectly still, her ancient eyes fixed on him. She was older than anyone knew, perhaps thousands of years old. Her face showed no emotion but felt her attention like a physical weight. "Yes, Your Majesty," said, his voice steady. "I come on behalf of Earth and all humanity. We seek peaceful relations with the Aura Empire. We wish to trade, to learn, and to live in harmony with our neighbors among the stars." Laughter erupted from one side of the chamber. Stepped forward from the line of nobles. She was tall even for a Aura, and her armor gleamed with the markings of a high military commander. Her eyes, bright yellow like a predator's, fixed on with undisguised contempt. "Harmony," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "The human speaks of harmony. Your species barely escaped your own planet before you started destroying it. You have been in space for what? A few hundred of your short years. We have ruled the stars since before your ancestors learned to make fire." Remained silent, his face calm. He had expected this. The reports from the captured research ship had warned him that the Aura viewed humans as primitives. Circled him slowly like a hunter examining prey. "Look at him," she called out to the other nobles. "Soft skin that tears easily, weak bones that break under pressure, small eyes that can barely see in the dark. And yet he comes here speaking of trade and harmony as if he has anything to offer us." More laughter rippled through the chamber, though notice that some of the older nobles remained quiet. Queen had not moved or spoken. "Your ship stumbled into our territory by accident," continued. "You didn't navigate here through skill or knowledge. You got lost. You are children playing with toys you don't understand, and now you want to sit at the table with your betters." Took a slow breath. He had been trained for this. Don't react to insults. Stay calm, represent Earth with dignity. "We are new to this region of space," he said quietly. "But we are not children. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that nearly destroyed us. We have rebuilt our world from ashes more than once. We may be young compared to the Aura, but we learn quickly, and we don't give up easily." Laughed again, but this time there was an edge to it. She didn't like being answered back. "Don't give up easily," she sneered. "Brave words from a species that has never faced real enemies. You have fought only each other, killing yourselves over scraps of dirt and metal. You know nothing of true warfare, nothing of strength." She turned to face the Queen. "Your Majesty, why do we even entertain this creature? His species has nothing we need. They cannot defend themselves. They have no resources we want. They are weak, soft, and ignorant. I suggest we send him back to his little planet with a warning. Stay in your corner of space, or we will remove you from it. Murmurs of agreement came from several nobles. Felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. This was going badly, but he couldn't afford to lose his temper. Queen finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the entire chamber. Commander makes strong claims, the Queen said. She says the humans are weak. Perhaps we should test this claim. Smiled, cruel and confident. An excellent idea, Your Majesty. I would be honored to demonstrate the difference between human weakness and aura strength. Not you, the Queen said, cutting through eagerness. The trial of honor. Let the human prove his worth in our traditional way. If he survives, we will hear his proposal. If he fails, she left the sentence unfinished. Understood immediately. The trial of honor was a combat test, something he had read about in the limited files Earth had on the aura. It was usually reserved for those seeking to join the military or earn a position in the government. It was designed to be difficult, even for the aura themselves. I accept, said before anyone could speak for him. Smile widened. Excellent. I will personally oversee the trial. I will design every challenge, every test. We will see exactly how much this human can endure before he breaks. The trial will begin at dawn tomorrow, Queen announced. Commander will set the parameters. Representative will have tonight to prepare. She paused, her ancient eyes fixing on once more. I suggest you rest well, human. Tomorrow you will need every ounce of your strength. The council was dismissed. As the nobles filed out, many of them glanced at with expressions that ranged from pity to curiosity. Walked past him, close enough to whisper. I'm going to enjoy watching you fail, she hissed. By this time tomorrow, everyone will know that humans don't belong among the stars. Watched her go, then looked up at the throne one last time. Queen hadn't moved. She was still watching him, her expression unreadable. For just a moment he thought he saw something in her eyes, not contempt or pity but something else. Recognition, perhaps, or memory. Then she rose and left through a private door, and was alone in the vast chamber, with only the light of 3 suns and the weight of tomorrow's trial ahead of him. The battle arena rose like a mountain from the center of the city, stood at the entrance, looking up at the massive structure. Thousands of aura filled the viewing platforms, their voices creating a low rumble of anticipation. They had come to watch the human fail. Stood beside him, checking the equipment one last time. He was the only other human on the planet, part of small support team. His hands moved quickly over the armor pieces, testing each connection. The armor is standard issue, said quietly. Nothing special, but it should protect you from minor hits. The weapon is basic too. They're not giving you any advantages. I didn't expect them to, replied. He looked at the energy blade in his hand. It was lighter than what he was used to and the balance felt wrong, but it would have to do. Has full control over the trial parameters, continued, his voice worried. She can change the environment, adjust the difficulty, add new challenges. The rules say she's supposed to keep it fair, but he didn't finish the sentence. They both knew wouldn't play fair. Put his hand on shoulder. If something happens to me, make sure Earth knows I didn't give up. That's important. Nothing's going to happen, said, but his eyes showed doubt. You've survived worse than this. Have I? Smiled slightly. I don't think I've ever faced an entire alien empire before. A loud horn blast echoed across the arena. It was time. Walked through the entrance tunnel. The ground beneath his feet changed from solid metal to sand. The air grew hot. When he emerged into the arena floor, he found himself standing in a desert under a blazing artificial sun. Heat waves shimmered in the distance. There was no water, no shade, nowhere to hide. His voice boomed from speakers hidden around the arena. Welcome, human, to the trial of honor. We begin with a simple test. Survive. The sand in front of him exploded upward. 3 combat drones emerged, their weapons already charging. They were hunter models designed to track and eliminate targets efficiently. Had fought similar machines during the wars on Earth, but these looked more advanced. He dove to the side as the first drone fired. The energy blast hit where he had been standing, turning the sand into glass. Rolled, came up running, and headed for a cluster of rocks on the edge of the arena. The drones followed, firing continuously. "Look at him run," his voice echoed with amusement. "So much for human bravery. He runs from simple machines." Ignored her words. He reached the rocks and ducked behind one just as another blast struck near his head. The heat washed over him, but the rock provided cover. He took 2 seconds to think, to plan. The drones were fast but predictable. They moved in a standard attack pattern, probably programmed for opponents who would stand and fight. Waited until they spread out, trying to flank him. Then he moved. He ran directly at the closest drone, which wasn't expecting the attack. His energy blade cut through its main sensor, and the machine wobbled, confused. Grabbed it and threw it into the path of the second drone. They collided in a shower of sparks. The third drone fired but was already moving. He used the destroyed first drone as a shield, pushing it forward while staying behind it. The energy blasts hit the wreckage instead of him. When he was close enough, he threw his blade like a spear. It struck the third drone's power core and the machine exploded. The second drone was recovering from the collision, picked up a piece of metal from the destroyed machines, and used it to deflect the drone's fire back at itself. The drone's own shot took it down. Silence fell over the arena. Then heard something he hadn't expected, cheering. Not from everyone, but from some of the crowd. Apparently, even the aura appreciated skill when they saw it. "Lucky," his voice cut through the noise. "Let's see how you handle something more challenging." The desert environment flickered and changed. Now stood in a rocky canyon. The temperature dropped, and from caves in the canyon walls he heard growling. War beasts. The aura bred them for combat, creatures with thick armor plates, razor-sharp claws, and pack-hunting instincts. 3 of them emerged from the caves, each one twice the size of a human. Had no weapon now. His blade had been destroyed with the last drone. He looked around quickly, assessing the terrain. The canyon had narrow passages, loose rocks on the slopes, and what looked like a small stream running through the center. The beasts charged. Ran for the narrowest part of the canyon. The beasts were fast, but their size worked against them in tight spaces. The first one reached him just as he ducked into a gap between 2 rocks. The beast couldn't follow. It roared in frustration, trying to squeeze through. Climbed. The rocks were rough and provided good handholds. He pulled himself up just as the second beast tried to jump at him. It missed, crashing into the first beast. They snarled at each other, confused. The third beast was smarter. It climbed up a different path, trying to cut him off from above. Saw it coming and changed direction, moving along a narrow ledge. The beast followed, but the ledge was barely wide enough for it. Reached a spot where a large boulder sat precariously balanced on the edge of the cliff. He pushed against it with all his strength. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the boulder shifted. It rolled down the slope, gaining speed. The third beast saw it coming and tried to jump clear, but the boulder clipped it and sent it tumbling down into the canyon. It crashed into the other 2 beasts, and all 3 went down in a tangle of limbs and angry roars. Didn't wait to see if they recovered. He climbed higher, found a cave entrance, and ducked inside. His chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath. Sweat poured down his face and his muscles ached. Clever, admitted over the speakers. But running and hiding is all you know how to do. You haven't actually defeated anything. You're just surviving, barely. In the observation deck, watched with clenched fists. He could see was already injured. There was blood on his left arm from where rocks had cut him during the climb. How much more could one person take? The environment shifted again. This time found himself in ruins of what looked like an ancient city. Buildings crumbled around him, and the sky above was dark with storm clouds. Lightning flashed. "Third wave," announced. "This is where most candidates fail, but don't worry, human. If you want to surrender, just say the word. I'll end your suffering quickly." Stood slowly. Every muscle protested. He was tired, hurt, and weaponless. But he thought about Earth, about watching, about everyone back home who needed this mission to succeed. He thought about's mocking smile. "I'm not surrendering," he said quietly. New enemies appeared in the ruins. These were combat androids, humanoid in shape but clearly machines. There were 6 of them, and they carried weapons. Real weapons. Looked down at his empty hands, then at the ruins around him. He picked up a piece of broken metal, tested its weight, and smiled grimly. "Come on then," he muttered. The androids advanced, and the real fight began. Queen sat alone in her private chamber, watching the trial on a display screen. Her ancient hands rested on the arms of her chair, and her eyes tracked every movement made in the arena. While the crowd cheered or gasped at the action, she remained silent and still. She had seen this before. 300 cycles ago, when she was younger and more curious about the universe, had led an exploration mission herself. It was unusual for a queen to leave her throne world, but she had grown tired of reading reports from others. She wanted to see the distant corners of space with her own eyes. They had discovered Earth by accident, a small blue planet orbiting an average star. Initial scans showed primitive life, barely entering their industrial age. Most of her crew wanted to move on. There were thousands of primitive worlds in the galaxy. Why waste time on another? But something had made order a closer look. They had hidden their ship behind the planet's moon and watched for several weeks. What she saw had disturbed her crew but fascinated her. The humans were at war. Not just one war, but many. Conflicts raged across their entire planet. They killed each other with machines and weapons and fire. The death count was staggering. Her crew had been horrified. "They are destroying themselves," her advisor had said. "We should leave them to their fate. Violent species like this never reach the stars. They burn out first." But had kept watching, and what she saw wasn't just violence. She saw something else beneath it. She remembered one scene in particular. A city was burning. Buildings collapsed under bombardment. In the middle of the destruction, she watched a human soldier throw himself on top of an explosive device to save 5 children hiding nearby. The soldier died instantly. The children lived. Why did he do that? She had asked her crew. What logical reason could he have? None of them could answer. In our society, individuals served the empire, but self-sacrifice to that degree was rare. You protected your own life first, your family second, your empire third. That was rational. That was survival. But the humans didn't seem to think that way. She watched them rebuild cities that were destroyed, again and again. She saw them share food during famines, even when it meant they had less for themselves. She watched them create art and music in the middle of war zones, as if beauty mattered more than survival. And she watched them refuse to surrender, even when surrender was the logical choice. There was a battle in a place called Thermopylae, ancient history even by human standards. She had studied it in their records. 300 human warriors held a narrow pass against an army of thousands. They knew they would die. There was no chance of victory, no hope of survival, but they fought anyway to buy time for others to escape. Irrational, her military commander had declared. Wasteful, foolish. But had wondered, what kind of species values honor more than life itself? She had watched their wars, their struggles, their endless cycle of destruction and rebuilding, and slowly she began to understand. The humans weren't violent because they enjoyed it. They were violent because they cared too much. They fought for ideas, for principles, for people they loved. They would die for things that couldn't be touched or measured. Her crew had called it madness. She had called it something else, dangerous potential. "Your Majesty," her advisor had said as they prepared to leave. "Should we mark this planet for future observation?" Had thought for a long time, then she had nodded. "Place a monitoring beacon, hide it well. I want to know if they reach the stars." "And if they do," the advisor had asked, "they could be a threat." "Then we will be ready," had replied. "But I don't think they will be a threat. I think they will be something the galaxy hasn't seen in a very long time." "What is that, Your Majesty?" Had smiled slightly. "Something extraordinary." Now, 300 cycles later, she watched fight in the arena below. He was exhausted, wounded, and outmatched. The trial had been designed for fresh warriors with proper equipment, had made it even harder, adding challenges that shouldn't be there. But kept fighting. On the screen, she watched him use a piece of broken metal to deflect an android's blade. He used rubble to trip another android. When one knocked him down, he rolled and came up swinging. His movements weren't elegant like a Aura warrior. They were rough, brutal, and desperate. But he didn't stop. Saw the same quality she had seen 300 cycles ago. That stubborn refusal to give up, even when giving up made sense. That irrational courage that drove humans to do impossible things. The androids were winning. Even from her chamber, could see that was slowing down. Blood stained his armor in several places. His breathing was labored. One of the androids struck him hard enough to send him crashing into a ruined wall. His voice came over the arena speakers, triumphant. "Had enough, human. This is what happens when primitives try to stand with their betters. You're nothing. Your species is nothing." Pushed himself up from the ground. He shouldn't have been able to stand. The hit should have broken bones, knocked him unconscious. But somehow he stood. "You talk too much," he said, his voice barely audible over the speakers. Then he charged. What happened next would be talked about in the Aura Court for years. Fought like something possessed. He had no technique left, no strategy, just pure determination. He grabbed one android and used it as a shield against the others. When his improvised weapon broke, he used his fists. When an android knocked him down, he bit its arm and tore out wiring with his teeth. It was brutal, it was savage, it was completely irrational. It was very human. Queen leaned forward in her chair. Around the arena, the crowd had gone silent, even seemed speechless. They were watching something they had never seen before, a being who simply would not accept defeat, no matter what logic said. Destroyed the last android by shoving it off a broken building ledge. The machine crashed to the ground below, then collapsed to his knees, blood dripping from dozens of wounds. But he was still conscious, still alive. "Impossible," heard whisper over a private channel. "He should be dead. Anyone else would be dead." Smiled. "That's what makes them special." She watched as medical alerts flashed on her screen. Vital signs were in the critical range. The trial should end now. Medical protocols required it. But Saw's hand moved toward the control panel. Saw her face twist with anger and humiliation. "No," whispered, "don't do it." But did. She initiated an emergency protocol, something reserved for only the most extreme tests. The arena environment shifted one final time. And herself appeared in the arena, fully armed and armored. The crowd gasped. This wasn't part of the trial. This was personal. This was murder dressed up as testing. Stood from her chair. She moved toward the door of her chamber, her old body suddenly feeling very young again. Her guards looked surprised. The queen never left her chambers during trials. "Prepare my transport," she ordered. "I'm going to the arena now." "Your Majesty, is something wrong?" one guard asked. Looked at the screen one more time. Was trying to stand, facing with nothing but his bare hands and his indomitable will. He looked like he would die at any moment, but his eyes, she noted, showed no fear, only defiance. "No," said softly, "nothing is wrong, everything is finally right." She left the chamber, moving faster than she had in decades. Behind her, the screen showed raising her weapon, pointing it at the wounded human who refused to kneel before her. The queen had waited 300 cycles to see if humans would reach the stars. Now one stood before her empire, bloodied but unbroken, and she would not let pride destroy what could be the most important moment in our history. The trial was supposed to test strength, but knew that true strength came in many forms, and the human in her arena was about to teach the entire empire a lesson about what real strength meant. The arena environment had changed again. Now it resembled a destroyed city with broken buildings and rubble-filled streets. Smoke drifted through the air, stood in the center of it all, barely able to keep his balance. Every breath sent pain through his ribs. His vision blurred at the edges. Blood dripped from cuts on his face and arms. And now was here. She appeared 50 meters away, stepping through a doorway that hadn't existed seconds before. Her armor was ceremonial, decorated with medals and honors, but could see it was fully functional. Energy shields shimmered around her. Her weapon was military grade, far beyond anything used in normal trials. "Surprised human," called out. Her voice echoed off the ruined buildings. "Did you think passing a few tests would be enough? Did you think we would actually accept your pitiful species into our empire?" Didn't answer. He was too busy trying to stay standing. His legs shook. His hands trembled. He had nothing left. No weapons, no armor that still worked, no energy to fight. But he didn't run. "I'm going to show this entire court why humans don't belong here," continued. She walked toward him slowly, confident. "I'm going to show them what happens to primitives who reach beyond their place. And when your friend takes your body back to your little planet, every human will know. You tried and you failed." His voice crackled in his earpiece. "This isn't legal. She can't do this. I'm trying to get to you, but the guards are blocking me. Just hold on." "It's okay," managed to whisper. He pulled the earpiece out and dropped it. Whatever happened next, he didn't want to hear. Raised her weapon. "Any last words, human?" Looked at her, really looked at her. She was tall and strong and powerful. She had technology humans had only dreamed about. She had an entire empire behind her, and she was absolutely terrified. He could see it now, even through his blurred vision. The way her hand gripped the weapon too tightly. The way her eyes kept darting to the crowd. She wasn't here to test him. She was here because he had scared her. By surviving, he had proven something she didn't want to admit, that humans were dangerous. Not because they were strong or advanced, but because they didn't know when to quit. "You're afraid," said quietly. His eyes widened. "What did you say?" "You're afraid of us," repeated louder this time. "That's why you're here. That's why you changed the trial. You're afraid that if I succeed, everything you believe about your superior empire will be wrong." "I fear nothing," roared. She fired her weapon. The energy blast shot toward. He threw himself to the side, rolling behind a broken wall. The blast hit the wall and exploded it into fragments, covered his head as debris rained down on him. He couldn't win this fight. That was obvious, but maybe he didn't need to win. Maybe he just needed to show these aliens something they had forgotten. Ran. Not away from but through the ruined city. She followed, firing continuously. Blasts hit buildings around him, turning stone into powder. But the ruins provided cover and had learned to read the terrain during the earlier trials. "Running again," shouted. "That's all your kind knows how to do." Ducked into a building, ran through it, and came out on the other side. He grabbed a piece of broken pipe and threw it at. It bounced off her shields harmlessly, but it made her pause for a second. That was all he needed. He led her through the streets, using every trick he knew. He dropped rubble to slow her down. He took sharp turns to break her line of sight. He climbed when she expected him to run, and ran when she expected him to hide. And slowly he learned her patterns. Was a trained warrior, but she had been trained for fair fights against equal opponents. She expected rules, protocols, honor. had been trained in Earth's brutal wars where there was no honor, only survival. He fought dirty because dirty fighting kept you alive. When chased him around a corner was waiting. He had found a piece of broken glass, sharp as a knife. As she came around the corner too fast, too confident, he slashed at the exposed joint in her armor near the elbow. The glass broke, but not before cutting through the flexible material. Shield flickered. She screamed in anger and pain. "You dare!" she roared, swinging her weapon like a club. Ducked under the swing and kicked at her knee. The armor protected her, but the impact still made her stumble. For the first time, doubt crossed her face. The fight moved through the ruined city. Was wounded and exhausted, but he had spent his whole life being the smaller, weaker opponent. He knew how to use that. He made chase him through tight spaces where her bulk worked against her. He made her shoot at shadows and waste her weapon's charge. Every time she cornered him, he found a way out. Every time she thought she had him, he surprised her. The crowd watched in absolute silence now. They had come expecting to see a human crushed, a primitive creature put in its place. Instead, they were watching their champion, one of their best warriors, being embarrassed by someone who should have been dead 3 times over. His breathing grew heavy. She was frustrated, angry, and most of all, humiliated. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The human should have been begging for mercy by now. "Stop running," she screamed. "Face me like a warrior." "Why?" called back from behind cover. "So you can shoot me. That's not how I fight." He darted out, grabbed a heavy piece of metal, and threw it at her weapon. The throw was perfect. The metal struck the weapon's barrel just as she fired, and the energy blast went wild, hitting a building that collapsed behind her. Dropped the damaged weapon. Her hands shook with rage. "Fine, no weapons. I'll crush you with my bare hands." She charged at him and this time didn't run. He was too tired. His legs wouldn't carry him anymore. So he did the only thing left. He met her charge. They collided in the middle of the ruined street. Was stronger, bigger, and armored. Was wounded, exhausted, and wearing broken armor. It should have been over in seconds. But fought like he was made of iron and anger. He blocked her strikes, countered when he could, and refused to go down. When she knocked him back, he got up. When she hit him, he hit back. When she screamed at him to surrender, he laughed. The fight became brutal and desperate. They crashed through buildings. They fell and got up and fell again. There was no technique anymore, no strategy, just two beings trying to prove something to themselves and everyone watching. Then saw his opening. Threw a punch that was too wild, too angry. Grabbed her arm and used her own momentum to flip her over. She crashed to the ground hard, her helmet cracking against stone. Before she could rise, grabbed her weapon from where she had dropped it. He stood over her, the weapon pointed at her face. The entire arena held its breath. Stood there, wounded and bleeding, the weapon steady in his hands. Lay on the ground, defeated, staring up at him with a mixture of shock and fear. He could kill her. After everything she had done, after all the illegal modifications to the trial, after her mockery and hatred, he could end it right now. Instead, he dropped the weapon. It clattered on the stones beside her. Then he extended his hand to help her up. Stared at the offered hand like it was a snake. "What are you doing?" "The fight is over," said. "You lost, but that doesn't mean I have to kill you." For a moment something changed in his eyes. Confusion, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. Her hand started to reach for his. Then pride and humiliation crashed back over her face. She slapped his hand away and rolled to her feet. "You think you've won," she hissed. "You think your mercy makes you superior." She grabbed something from her belt. A small knife, hidden as a backup weapon. In our culture, holding a hidden weapon was the ultimate dishonor, but was beyond caring about honor now. She lunged at its exposed back. The crowd screamed in horror. Even the nobles who had mocked shouted warnings. This wasn't just defeating an opponent anymore. This was murder. This was dishonor beyond forgiveness. Started to turn, but he was too slow, too tired. The knife descended toward his back. And then a voice echoed across the arena like thunder itself. "Kneel right now." The voice crashed through the arena like a physical force. Every speaker, every sound system, every communication device carried those words. They weren't shouted, but they carried such absolute authority that everyone froze. Snife stopped in midair. Her whole body went rigid. Then, as if her legs had turned to water, she dropped to her knees. The knife fell from her hand and clattered on the stone. Around the arena, every aura present fell to their knees as well, including the guards and nobles in the viewing platforms. Only remained standing, because he didn't understand what was happening. Queen walked into the arena through the main gate. She moved slowly, with the weight of centuries in every step. Her guards tried to follow her, but she waved them back. She walked alone across the ruined cityscape toward the two fighters. The crowd was silent. In 1,000 years of Aura history, no one could remember the queen descending from her throne to enter the trial arena. It simply didn't happen. The queen observed. She judged. She ruled. But she did not walk among the trials like a common observer. Until now. Reached first. The commander kept her head bowed, her whole body shaking. Whether from fear or shame or both, couldn't tell. "Look at me," commanded. Slowly raised her head. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. "Your Majesty, I was only—" "Silence," cut her off. The single word carried such finality that mouth snapped shut. "Do you know what you have done? Do you understand the dishonor you have brought not just to yourself, but to this entire court?" "I was defending our empire's honor," said weakly. "By hiding a weapon, by attacking from behind, by trying to murder a defenseless opponent who showed you mercy." His voice was cold enough to freeze stars. "You have forgotten what honor means. You have forgotten what strength truly is." She turned away from and walked too. He tried to straighten up to show respect, but his body wouldn't cooperate. His legs finally gave out and he started to fall. Caught him, her hands, old and seemingly fragile, held him with surprising strength. "Easy, young warrior," she said, her voice softer now. "You have done enough, more than enough." "I didn't finish the trial," managed to say. His voice was barely a whisper. "The trial is over," replied. "It was over the moment you offered mercy to your enemy. That was the true test and you passed it perfectly." She helped him sit down on a piece of broken wall, then stepped back to address the entire arena. Her voice, when she spoke, carried to every corner, to every viewer, to every being present. "I am old," she began. "Older than any of you can imagine. I have ruled the Aura Empire for 2,000 cycles. I have seen worlds rise and fall. I have witnessed the birth of stars and the death of civilizations. And in all that time, I have watched our empire grow in power and technology." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But I have also watched us forget something essential. We have become so proud of our strength that we have forgotten what real strength means. We have confused power with honor. We have mistaken might for right." Walked in a slow circle, addressing different sections of the crowd. 300 cycles ago, I discovered a primitive planet called Earth. The beings there were violent, chaotic, and technologically backward. My advisors wanted to leave them to destroy themselves. They said such a species would never reach the stars. A murmur ran through the crowd. They hadn't known their queen had been to Earth. "But I watched them," continued, "and I saw something we had lost. I saw beings who would die for ideas they couldn't touch. I saw them sacrifice themselves for others without hesitation. I saw them choose honor over survival again and again, even when it made no sense." She pointed at, "This warrior embodies everything I saw in humanity 300 cycles ago. He was wounded, exhausted, and outmatched. He had every reason to surrender. Every logical being would have surrendered. But he didn't. not because he couldn't admit defeat, but because he represented something larger than himself. Turned back to, who still knelt on the ground. And when he defeated you, Commander, what did he do? He offered mercy. Not because you deserved it, but because mercy is what separates warriors from killers, honor from brutality, civilization from barbarism. His head dropped, tears ran down her silver face. You mocked this human, said. You called him weak, primitive, worthless, and in doing so you revealed your own weakness. True strength isn't about having the biggest weapon or the strongest armor. True strength is having the power to destroy your enemy and choosing mercy instead. The Queen faced the crowd again. I placed a monitoring beacon near Earth 300 cycles ago. I wanted to see if humans would reach the stars. And if they did, I wanted to be ready. Not to fight them, but to learn from them. Because they have something we desperately need. What is that, Your Majesty? An old noble called out. Smiled. The courage to be better than our worst instincts. The strength to show mercy. The wisdom to know that power without honor is just tyranny. She walked back to and helped him stand once more. Representative of Earth, she said formally, you came here seeking trade and peaceful relations. I offer you more than that. I offer a formal alliance between humanity and the Ara Empire. Your people will have full rights within our borders. Your voice will be heard in our councils. And your warriors, she glanced at, will help teach ours what we have forgotten. Stared at her. Your Majesty, I don't know what to say. Say yes, replied with a slight smile. Your species has earned a place among the stars, not because of your technology or your weapons, but because of your spirit, because you don't know when to quit, because you choose honor even when it costs everything. Looked around the arena, at the thousands of Ara watching in silence, at who had finally broken through the guards and was running toward them, at still kneeling, broken and humiliated. Then he looked at Queen and he saw something in her ancient eyes that he recognized. Respect. Real, genuine respect. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, he said, his voice growing stronger, I accept. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some stood in shock. But all of them understood they had witnessed something that would change the Empire forever. Turn to one last time. You are stripped of your command. Your rank is forfeit. Your honors are revoked. You have 30 days to leave this court. Your Majesty, please, began. However, interrupted, I am told that humans believe in redemption, that they believe beings can change and grow. So I give you a choice. Leave in disgrace or stay and learn. Learn looked confused. The humans will establish a training program, explained. They will teach our warriors their methods, their tactics, their way of thinking. You may join this program if you wish. Start at the bottom. Learn humility. Learn honor. Perhaps, in time, you will understand what you witnessed today. Looked at, who nodded slightly despite his exhaustion. I will join, said quietly, if they will have me. Then rise, commanded. Your redemption begins now. Stood slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. She bowed deeply to him, a gesture of profound respect in Ara culture. I was wrong about your species, she said. Teach me to be better. Extended his hand again. This time, after a moment's hesitation, took it. Finally reached them, medical supplies in his hands. You idiot, you almost died. But I didn't, replied with a tired smile. And look what we gained. Queen watched the three of them, human, and Ara, standing together. In that moment, she saw the future she had hoped for 300 cycles ago. A future where different species learned from each other, where strength meant more than weapons, where mercy was valued as highly as victory. Come, she said to all of them. There is much to discuss, and our wounded warrior needs medical attention. We have a new alliance to build, and I have waited long enough to see it begin. As they walked out of the arena together, the crowd watched in silence. Then slowly, the cheering began. Not everyone joined in. Some nobles looked angry or confused, but enough cheered that the sound filled the arena and spilled out into the city beyond. High above, on the viewing platform, an old noble turned to his companion. "Did we just witness the beginning of a new era?" he asked. His companion, equally old, nodded slowly. "I believe we did, and it began with a single human who refused to surrender. Do you think there are more like him?" "I think," the old noble replied, "that there are billions like him, and that is why our queen waited 300 cycles. She knew, she always knew." Down in the arena, looked back one last time at the place where he had nearly died, where he had faced impossible odds and somehow survived, where he had changed the fate of his entire species with nothing but determination and a choice to show mercy. He smiled despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, despite everything. Humanity had reached the stars, and the stars would never be the same.